Okay, good morning, everybody. We are going to ask the question we did in part one, so stick with me just for a second. We're asking the question, what's the difference between Marilyn Monroe's soft, supple, natural rear end and, one, two, three, Kim Kardashian's sack of snacks? God bless. Okay, there we go. Once again, what's the difference between Marilyn Monroe's natural, beautifully round, supple rear end and Kim Kardashian's technical difficulties. Kim Kardashian's tater tot lot. We are asking these major questions here today, and you are with the unofficial king of LinkedIn Live.
Unofficial king of LinkedIn Live. And on the replay ride, yeah. Hit that follow, keep that streak alive.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the big Glyphosate debate. There's all of this controversy in MAHA land, supposedly. There's supposed to be all this controversy, but there isn't. It's actually manufactured drama. And we're going to go over some facts right here. And then we're going to actually we're going to go and take a look at the presentation addressing this subject. This is addressing the elephant in the room, the thing that everyone is talking about. So we're going to take a look at this just recent. It was just a few days ago. Tony Lyons presents the MAHA Action Forum. He's president of this part of MAHA, and I have to do my homework. This is not like totally affiliated with the Trump administration. It's sort of an independent organization, I believe. I'm going to have to get more versed in this. So let's get like our reality sort of situated. I signed up for the oh, it's not going to let me. The Golden Age report. Dawn of a new Golden Age report. You have to. So this is the White House document that's causing so much controversy in MAHA land. Promoting the national defense by ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate herbicide. And so you have everybody who in the world of functional nutrition and natural medicine going, what is going on? And we're going to go through this document really quickly. I just want to take a look at a couple of key points. So it says elemental phosphorus is pervasive in defense supply chains and is therefore crucial to to military readiness and national defense. It is a key input in smoke illumination, incendiary devices, and a critical component for the manufacture of semiconductors, central to numerous defense technologies such as radar, so on and so forth. It also increasingly important in modern lithium and ion battery development, weapon systems. Elemental phosphorus is also a critical precursor element in the production of glyphosate herbicides, which play a critical role in maintaining America's agriculture advantage by enabling farmers to efficiently and cost-effectively produce food and livestock feed. And in the world of natural, organic food and medicine, you're gonna get this big time. People say glyphosate causes cancer. What are you doing? Well, let's take another look really quickly to wrap our minds around what's happening here. Okay, so here's the important paragraph. Ensuring an adequate supply of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides is thus crucial to the national security and defense. And so let's move down here, right? All right. For that reason, more than 6 million kilograms of elemental phosphorus are imported from other countries annually. Okay. This is the key sentence right here. Future reduction or cessation of domestic production of elemental phosphorus and glyphosate-based herbicides gravely threaten American national security, disrupting and requiring the further offshoring of this nation's defense supply chain, including by having a debilitating impact on domestic and agricultural pesticides, right? And so people in the wellness space are, going, glyphosate is evil. Glyphosate is ruining everything, right? So let's just be a little bit logical about this. Let's just take a look at a few points of interest here.
The most widely used pesticide in the U.S. Each year, more than 250 million pounds of glyphosate are sprayed on American crops.
Okay. Did you hear what she just said? She just said each year 250 million pounds of glyphosate are sprayed on American crops. I'm not substantiating that. I'm just taking that as a real number. It could be wrong just because she says it doesn't make it true. But what is true is the Trump administration is earmarking that 6 million kilograms, 6 million kilos of elemental phosphorus are imported from other countries annually. So they're targeting and highlighting 6 million kilos. 6 million kilos is about 13.5 million pounds. 250 million pounds are sprayed on crops every year. So we're talking about they're earmarking 5% of what constitutes the entire glyphosate inundation that we're in. All right? So good or bad, right or wrong, the Trump administration is through this executive order says we want to repatriate everything. If we're going to be making glyphosate, if we're going to be dumping 250 million pounds of it every year, okay, it's going to be our glyphosate, nobody else's. We're going to make sure that all the phosphorus and everything that we need is made here in the United States. That's all that this directive is saying. It's not promoting glyphosate. It's not framing glyphosate in a negative or positive light. It's just saying if we're going to be making it, right, we're not going to be importing it. If we're going to be using it, we're not going to be importing it. We're going to make it here at home. Okay? One other thing I'd like us to take a look at.
Use in over 160 countries. What makes over 160? A popular weed killer approved for use in over 160 countries. What makes
160 countries? Glyphosate is used in over 160 countries. All right? Did you get that? There's over 250 million pounds of glyphosate that's being dumped on crops in the United States, and over 160 countries use glyphosate or have it's okay to use glyphosate for crop production. All right? Do you get it? There's only like 180 countries total, and 160 of them use glyphosate as a pesticide. So within that reality, like the Trump administration is going to change that. The Trump administration is all of a sudden going to say, okay, we're going to now ban glyphosate and out of all these other countries. No, it's ridiculous. They're saying this is the reality of it. 250 million pounds are dumped on crops every year. 160 countries are using it. So if we're going to be using it, we're going to be making it. That's all this executive order says. And so before we look at the MAHA Action Hub, we're going to once again ask that age-old question. What is the difference between Marilyn Monroe's lovely, supple, natural rear end and Kim Kardashian's snack pack rack? What's the difference, people? All right. Well, we're going to talk about it right now. First principles. What's the difference between the calcium ingested in terms of food and the calcium one sees on the periodic table? Remember that table in chemistry class that was all frightening, all of these letters there on the back wall? That's the periodic table of elements. Everything on Earth, you, me, this coffee cup, everything on the planet is made from these elements. It's stardust. We all came from a Big Bang supposedly, and these elements is the materials list. It's the Home Depot of stardust that we're all made of, right? So there's calcium on that periodic table. So what's the difference between the calcium on the periodic table you saw in chemistry class and the calcium you see on the dinner table or the breakfast table at home? God bless it. Irritating me. This mouth's gotta change it. Anyways, right here is the calcium that you'll find on the periodic table. Everything is irritating me today. There we go. This is the periodic table of elements. Everything in the known universe, including you and me, is built from these fundamental elements. Calcium is circled here in yellow. Okay? Let me make this a little bit. There we go. What's the difference? The difference is the calcium on the periodic table is a description of energy. It's defined by an atomic structure, which includes electrons, protons, and an atomic nucleus. It is not a characterization of calcium as matter. The calcium that you see on the periodic table is a representation of energy. It's an atomic structure which includes electrons, protons, and an atomic nucleus. The calcium that you see on the table is calcium as the form of matter. All right? And so this may sound redundant, but human beings cannot absorb calcium from the field of energy. We cannot absorb calcium from the void. Human beings need to eat. We need to ingest all essential nutrients in its material expression as a vitamin or a mineral. We have to shove it down the cake hole. All right, so that's the difference between the calcium that we see on the periodic table and the calcium we see on the dinner table. One is a form of energy, one is a form of matter. What does this all have to do with Marilyn Monroe's rear end? We've cured over 900 diseases in livestock, which still plagues humanity, using clinical and functional nutrition. When a horse starts to eat the fences and starts to eat the barn door, the farmer doesn't call a doctor to prescribe the horse Ozempic. The farmer, for the past 1,000 years, puts a salt lick, a cube of salt, out in the field, and the horse licks the salt and gets the minerals and trace minerals it needs from the block of salt, and it stops eating the barn door or the fences in search of essential nutrients. All right? So, if we consider using a healthcare insurance pharmaceutical model for livestock, simple preliminary due diligence reveals that a hamburger would cost about $300 a pound. All right? So we don't do that. That's right, $300 a pound. You heard it here first. My Lord, I'm gonna throw this computer out the window. Vertebrates need about half the elements on the periodic table to thrive. All right, so all of these green stars, you see that? All those green stars are the materials list. Just think of the periodic table as Home Depot. The periodic table is Home Depot. It has 120 plus elements. They keep adding them as time goes on. And about half of those table of elements, human beings need to thrive. Vertebrates need to thrive and survive. If you don't have those elements, the house breaks down. If you aren't periodically going to Home Depot to keep the repairs going on your body, your body's going to fall into disrepair. Physics, as sure as the sun rises and falls, right? Modern fertilizer is composed of NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. What did we just read? What did we just read? We just read that this executive order wants to repatriate all the phosphorus that we're using in terms of creating in manufacturing glyphosate and fertilizer, weapons. This phosphorus mineral is obviously very important for modern life. Excuse me. And so all three of these stars are the minerals, NPK. That's all we put in the soil. All right? We need 60 minerals to survive. We only put in 3. You can buy an organic tomato picked by the pastor's wife on Easter Sunday, and that tomato can still be 57 minerals short if it's grown in depleted soil. Okay, so over the last century, the nutrient density of our food supply has dramatically reduced. You see this? This is the nutrient density of our food supply over the last century. You see that? You see that? And all these chronic diseases have increased during the same time. You see that inverse relationship? Now, if you talk to these idiot MD-directed physicians, right? They'll tell you there's no such thing as a cancer epidemic. There's no such thing as an obesity or as an autism epidemic. Chronic disease isn't exploding. It's just that these priests of BS, these priests of pharmaceutical medicine, they're just getting better at detecting it. That's what these morons tell us. That every disease that you have, there's no root cause. If you have a disease, if you have asthma, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have a back problems like arthritis in your bones or in your spine, there's no root cause. You have original sin. You have, your genes are defective from the very fact of being you. You're defective, just like in the Christian world, you have sinned, right? You have to repent for your sins, and in today's world, you have to repent for your genetic dysfunction by swallowing a petroleum molecule. That's your penance, is to swallow a petroleum molecule because there's no root cause. You have original sin in the form of a genetic predisposition to disease, and that's it. Anything else, you're dealing with people who are out of the realm of scientific consensus, right? So, on September 4th, 1882, 257 Pearl Street, New York City, at 3 p.m., the first switch was flipped and the first electrical station began distributing current signaling decline and an end of wood ashes as a fertilizer. Okay? In 1882, more than 100 years ago, was it 150 years ago now? The first switch was engaged to start the first power electric power plant, and wood ashes that have been used for millennia. For as long as human beings have been on Earth, human beings used to use wood ashes as fertilizer. And wood ashes is not just carbon residue. It pulls minerals from a root profile that represents hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of sediment layer. So it's pulling up all of these minerals that have been deposited over time and making our soils mineral rich. And over the past 100 years, we've been strip mining our soils, growing things in the soil, and then just placing 3 elements, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, into our soil. That is the problem. You can spray whatever you want, DDT, whatever it is. DDT was a poison, then the other pesticides used to be hormone disruptors that would make insects incapable of reproducing. And now we have glyphosate, which acts as a blocker to an enzyme that is necessary for plants to grow. And the reason why plants can grow is because they are genetically, they're Roundup ready, they call them. They're genetically engineered to accept glyphosate and to work around its blocking function. Okay? That's the story. The story isn't the executive order. The story is, since 1882, we began on a path to deplete our soils of minerals. And then we layered this level of genetic engineering on top of it. And so, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? So, I'm going to show you what happened, right? So, this glorious, lovely, soft, supple, cellulite-free rear end was made here. All right? This booty was manufactured right around here when the soils were rich and filled with every mineral the body could have possibly wanted. So Marilyn Monroe's mom was making little baby Marilyn Monroe, making little Norma Jean, with a tank that was totally full with everything that the body needed to make a beautiful, healthy baby. And now you've got this snack pack rack, this lumpy rumpy, this tater tot lot, which was made here. Her mom had, unless she was aggressively supplementing, had a food source that was minerally void of any nutrition whatsoever. All right? Her booty was made here. Marilyn Monroe's rear end was made here. All right? That's the difference. So, are you sick? Gee, I wonder why. Are you sick? Do you have diabetes? Are you overweight? Do you have fibromyalgia? Do you have Hashimoto's disease, or whatever it is, or Graves' disease, or Lyme disease, or this disease? Do you have COVID? Do you have... When you have a house and only the materials drop every day is like drywall, there's no 2x4s, no sheathing, there's no nails, there's no screw, there's just massive amounts of drywall, right? Your digestive system is filled with all of these calories with zero nutrition. What do you think is going to happen? Right? This is going to happen. Are you sick? do you have? Gee, I wonder. And I wonder why. I wonder why this rear end, it just looks so perfectly free of cellulite and disease. Well, what's going on? Kim Kardashian, I think, broke into my computer here. And this double wide glide was made when the soils are completely depleted of minerals. Glyphosate or no glyphosate, DDT or no DDT, endocrine disruptor or no endocrine disruptor, right? This is the landscape in which we have to view that executive order and the glyphosate debate. The glyphosate debate is just one feature of a much greater problem. Is it doesn't matter if your food is organic. It's minerally, nutritionally deficient, bankrupt, empty. That's the problem. So we can cry all we want about whatever it is we want to cry about, but the facts are the facts. So we're going to play this MAHA segment, right? Addressing everything, addressing the thing everyone's talking about. And they're talking about what we just went through. All right. So let's see. There we go. Make sure I'm all set up. And let's, oops, I'm sorry. We can get rid of Kim Kardashian's snack rack. All right, so without further ado, this is the MAHA Action transmission. Next one is in a couple of days live. We'll be featuring it live. And I want you to pay attention to the quality. So this is a quasi, C-SPAN is about the most boring thing you can watch ever, right? Don't you think? So if you're thinking about a live production, and if you go to your live production looking like a glorified Zoom call, you're like, last century. That's 2010, baby. We're in the 2020s, looking at the dawn of a new golden age. So I want you to watch this video, and I want you to pay attention to things like there's going to be a speaker that's going to, his connection is bad, and so then they put a waveform in there, and so there's this waveform going to the voice even though the screen visual has locked. All right, and so I want you to know the movement. Just like with this broadcast, you see me move. You see me moving, right? You see the things dissolving and moving. Pay attention, because that same level of quality is happening in the MAHA Action Committee broadcasts here. All right. So, without further ado, let's check it out. And of course, they have an intro and an outro, so that's the way it is. So let's check it out.
We will not comply with the institution's sick illusion. No, we won't be terrified.
Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub, and welcome to the MAHA Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of MAHA Action. Before we get to the topic that I know you all want to talk about, let's start with a win. And this is a really big win. In the free state of Florida, a proposed bill would have expanded so-called food libel laws. This bill that was far from anyone's radar became hugely contentious because MAHA spoke in unison and got the job done. And as a result of that, the bill was amended to remove the gag order, and it passed. That is what this movement is capable of when we stay focused and we stay together. Now let me address the noise head on, because there's been a lot of it right now, and some of it is clearly designed to fracture this movement. Some people are saying that the MAHA leadership just admitted that their top priority is supporting Trump's agenda rather than making America healthy. Let me be direct. That framing is a trap. It's not the way we think about this. If we want to take the bait and turn on each other, the only people who will win are the people who want to make us sick and keep us sick. Here's what actually happened. Secretary Kennedy put out a statement, and he told the truth. He said pesticides and herbicides are toxic by design. He said chemical manufacturers have paid tens of billions of dollars to settle cancer claims. He said glyphosate is found in over 80% of American urine samples, including 87% of our children. And then he said something uncomfortable but honest. If these chemicals disappeared overnight, crop yields would totally collapse, food prices would surge, and millions of farm families would go under. That's not selling out. That's telling the truth about where we actually are now, and about how we can chart a path, a real path to a better future. The executive order does not change the position of glyphosate in our agricultural sector. Glyphosate was used yesterday, and it's going to be used today and tomorrow. But with our efforts, it doesn't need to be used in the long-term future. Is the executive order perfect? Absolutely not. MAHA Action's own memo says the immunity provision under Section 707 warrants continued legal scrutiny, and we're going to be part of that process. But it's also not a blanket shield for cancer lawsuits. There are over 60,000 Roundup cases still pending. Bayer's made a $7.25 billion settlement offer, and that's still on the table. And there's a new act that's just been introduced, and it's called the No Immunity for Glyphosate Act. Now, here is what I want everyone focused on, and this is the real threat. It's not about one executive order. It's the coordinated push for pesticide liability shields at the state level, which is already, they've already been passed in North Dakota and in Georgia, and now embedded in the House Farm Bill. And, these people want to strip your right to sue if pesticides make you sick, and prevent local communities from restricting spraying near schoolyards and other places. So that's the real fight. We're never for liability shields. We want to protect the American public, and we think liability shields hurt the public. Secretary Kennedy has always been very clear. We're not going to break our addiction to glyphosate by going cold turkey. We need to ease into a better future, and that future is closer than people think. As he told Theo Vaughn before the executive order was signed, new laser-based technology will soon be widely available. It will destroy weeds without destroying our health. And there are a lot of similar technologies out there that are growing and that will come to the public. MAHA Action's memo lays out exactly how we can accelerate the transition to these new technologies. An independent EPA review of glyphosate needs to be done that's not funded by the industry itself. We need to accelerate biological herbicides, robotic weeding, electrothermal systems that are already working on American farms right now. We need to expand the USDA's $700 billion regenerative pilot program. We need tax credits for farmers who adopt next generation technology. We need mandatory labeling so families know what's in their food. And we need to write these protections into law, not just executive orders that can theoretically be undone with a pen. So the common sense vision we should all rally behind is a 1-year plan to eat more real food, use fewer pesticides, take fewer drugs, take fewer unnecessary vaccines, boost the immune system, and build a stronger, healthier country with drastically lower chronic disease rates. That isn't partisan. That's not parenting or some kind of nanny state. That is common sense. And that is what MAHA has always been about. It's about practical, scientific, science-based ways to solve problems and to turn our ideas into reality and everyday best practices. MAHA at its core is an optimistic movement aimed at making it easier and more affordable to be healthy. So to the critics, we're not here to be anyone's voting bloc, but we do believe that this president and Secretary Kennedy have been a gift to the MAHA movement. And in the end, we're here because our kids are sick, our soil is dying, and 280 million pounds of a probable carcinogen are being sprayed on American farmland every single year. If you want to help fix that, regardless of party or position, welcome aboard. If you want to use this moment to divide us, we're not interested. So on today's MAHA Media Hub, we're going to hear from Florida Surgeon General Dr. Joe Ladapo, Senior HHS Advisor Callie Means, Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Cinna McCullough, Dr. Pierre Corey, Sayer G, Dr. Daniel Pompa, Shira Bowler, and Jeff Hayes, the director of the new MAHA film. First up, we have Dr. Joe Ladapo, who's a brave dissenting voice during COVID, but now too. And, he's really leading the fight for a healthy Florida as Surgeon General. And he's arguably making Florida, the healthiest, the most MAHA state in the nation. Thanks so much, Joe, and great to see you on.
Oh, great to see you, Tony. Thanks for inviting me. Remind me. Okay, I see the counter, so 5 minutes. All right, great. Well, it's great to be chatting with everyone. Always appreciative of all the work that everyone's doing and working so hard with. I wanted to talk briefly about the Healthy Florida First initiative that Governor DeSantis, First Lady Casey DeSantis, and I and my team have been working on. And, obviously it overlaps with this issue of glyphosate. The general overarching issue is really trying to do what we can to put more light and more attention and more awareness on things that are in food that are not good for us and that people don't know about, generally don't know about, and generally don't have a way of obtaining information about. So what we've done so far, we've done baby formula testing a bunch of brands that some of which we provide to Floridians here in the state, pregnant women who delivered and it may have low income. So we provide baby formula, and we've done testing there. We looked at mercury, we looked at lead, we looked at cadmium and a few other things. And most of the findings were okay, but some of the findings were very concerning, particularly related to mercury. And we talked about that. Something that seemed to get a lot of attention is candy testing. So we did candy testing and released those results a few weeks ago. And, my socks are still knocked off. Many of the old-fashioned, the candies that, many of us grew up like really chomping down at Halloween are very high in arsenic. And it continues to blow my mind. I don't know where the arsenic is coming from. I have no idea why the levels are so high in so many popular candies like, Twizzlers and Sweet Tarts and Tootsie Rolls and Nerds candies. But the levels are very high, and it's a very potent carcinogenic. So it's really a concerning finding. Fortunately, the good news is that a lot of the good brands, sort of these healthier brands that are marketed as healthier, like Unreal and there are others, they tended to test pretty well. So there's good news there. Most recently, we did a press conference. This was in early February before the executive order that Tony mentioned on bread testing. We tested a bunch of different brands, and we focused on glyphosate because, my assessment of the research that I've seen is that it's very problematic. You've got a compound here that, that people are exposed to chronically, and there's good data that shows that it alters the gut microbiome in ways that are harmful. There's good data that indicates that it may be weakening the blood-brain barrier, which is obviously a very big deal. There's good data for liver inflammation from fatty liver, which is a new epidemic. I mean, literally, it was something that was very uncommon, except in perhaps people with alcoholism, 30, 40 years ago. But it's extremely common now. It's a very common incidental finding on imaging studies. And I think it's a major problem. Like I said, we did that press conference before glyphosate got more attention with the executive order, and I would say, and I totally dig what Tony's saying, and I could never be unbiased about Bobby. I love Bobby. I could never be unbiased about him. I think that everyone has to find their comfort zone. For me, I'm comfortable with being hard on issues, but not letting that overlap with how I feel about people, if you will. So I think the glyphosate position is a problem. I do think it's a problem. I think that what people are doing in terms of continuing to really hit on the problem is the right thing to do. I don't think that, I think that if you feel comfortable with how things are going, and Tony certainly mentioned some really, really great ideas and proposals and investment that's happening now to really help us wean off of this compound, which I believe is extremely harmful, then I think that's great. And I'm really glad those things are happening. And, and if people are unhappy, I think it's fine for people to express their unhappiness. I hold myself to the same standard. I do the best I can. I don't make people happy all the time. And if people are unhappy, I think it's fine to say that and to have a conversation and to work on the problem and to be really, really hard on the problem, because it's an important problem. And I know that Bobby cares deeply about the problem. I think we all know that. And I know that he's, his mind and his energy is continuously working on how we can address the problem. I have full confidence and faith in that, and full confidence and faith in him. So again, great to chat with you, and thanks everyone for all the hard work you're doing.
Have you heard that vaginal estrogen is only for vaginal dryness? That it's local only and can't help?
Thanks, Joe. That, always great to have you on, and it's so clear that we need to attack the problems that have led to chronic disease, and that that we have to use every option we have. Like you said, do the testing, teach the public so that we can have a ground up, so that people really know what they're putting in their bodies and they can make better choices. And then we need to really look for alternatives that are practical and common sense, and that are going to lead to lowering the toxic load on every kid in the country. And I think we can do that we can make progress towards that. And our focus is going to be really on solving problems and on partnering with people, listening to people, looking for better options, and really trying to find ways to off-ramp toxic chemicals so that we can all be healthier.
Thanks, man.
Next up, we have Sayer G. Sayer is a proud member of the Disinformation Dozen, right alongside Secretary Kennedy and 10 others. And that's really a badge of honor these days, because the people who were labeled part of the Disinformation Dozen really suffered. Their businesses suffered. They suffered personally. So that was an incredible period of censorship and propaganda. And what I'm really grateful for is that we have a time now where that's not happening, where people can come out and they can give their point of view and they can argue. And that's the strength of the MAHA movement. And that's the strength of this period, that we can disagree, we can be really vocal, but then we can come together and work together as a team. So Sayer is the chairman of the Global Wellness Forum and the founder of greenmedinfo.com. He's one of the toughest and most steadfast MAHA warriors who's ever been part of this movement. And I'm just really proud and happy to work with him. Welcome, Sayer.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me right now, as well as being able to follow Dr. Latipo. It's quite an honor because here in Florida, where I live and have lived for 20 years, we have seen such an encouraging set of successes from citizens taking action, real civil engagement, driven by passion that comes from parents just caring about their children, caring about the quality of the air, the food, the water. And that's really the basis for MAHA, which is a movement that has, reached the heights of executive branch expression. And of course, there are times when, as of right now with the latest CEO, a lot of people are upset. But what I want to remind people of course, is just how much power the people do have. And that's what we're seeing in Florida more than, I believe, any state. Which is that if you look at just the past 14 months, when we started Global Wellness Forum, we were just trying to bring together the coalition to give voice to the individuals and organizations that have earned the trust of the public. Because, a good organization, it's just you're articulating the will and the voice of the people. And what we saw was, when it came to geoengineering legislation, Florida being the first state to actually criminalize unauthorized atmospheric modification with, health impacts, is that we saw over 100,000 people email within a period of just 2 weeks, completely grassroots, and it overwhelmed the lawmakers such that they took it really seriously. We had to go through 5 committees, and it was difficult, but we were able to pass that legislation only because of the grassroots. Another great example, once again, so proud of our Surgeon General here, is that we no longer add fluoride to the water, the most toxic of all form. And that is because citizens really did the job of going county by county, we have a toolkit through Stand for Health Freedom, one of the organizations in the coalition. And now we have 3/4 of the counties who had really just voted to get rid of it. So it gave our leadership all the more authority through the mandate of the people to go ahead and to move forward. And that's, of course, what Secretary Kennedy is doing right now on our behalf, working with the EPA to go through the proper steps so that we get this, terrible toxic chemical out of our water supply. So I want to celebrate that because, none of these individuals, have names we would necessarily recognize as heroes in this movement, but there are literally hundreds of thousands of citizens that have stood up for these victories, which we can all feel proud of right now. So another quick example is that there was a bill here in Florida that was going to make it difficult to speak out about, potentially the harms of pesticides. And we had a bunch of people through the Farm Bill, it's SB 290 and HB 433, that just stood up and came together at the Capitol and were able to essentially remove this clause and make sure that free speech is protected. And that was rallying people, having to drop, their normal responsibilities to show up in this way. And this is just such a beautiful thing that really I'm just so happy to be able to celebrate with everyone, because for good reasons, some people are very down right now about the fact that we aren't winning every single day on all levels. But I'm here to tell you that we actually are, because it really is our movement as individuals, as parents, as people that just care about the planet. That's what we're here to do. And we're doing an incredible job. And so I just want to be able to say that, like, as a Floridian, I'm just so proud of my state. We have a medical freedom bill, for example. And we have, of course, Joe, who's out there saying no more mandates on vaccines. And again, this is just Florida. All 50 states are joining in on some level. And I'm very proud of MAHA Action and everyone who's worked so hard to make sure that this is a national movement. So, again, I think we have a lot to appreciate and be grateful for.
I can't even button my work pants anymore. I had to buy new ones, 2 sizes bigger.
When'd the weight start piling on?
Thanks so much, Sarah. And, one of the reasons that we're having such great victories is because of people like you, who are tough, reasonable, always in the middle of the conversation. And, you're right that so many activists are sending, hundreds of thousands of emails. They're being loud, they're being vocal, they're energized. So we don't want to exclude anybody. We don't want to attack anybody. We want to find ways, find common ground, work together to get things done. And this is just starting. We're 1 year in, we have 3 years left. And, we have Secretary Kennedy in a position where he's really trying to, use practical common sense ways to improve public health. And that is really a once in a lifetime thing. And I'm proud to be part of it. And like you said, it's not always going to be a victory, not on, 7 days a week, but we're heading in the right direction. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Tony.
And, one of the people who really gets a lot done, who works day and night, is Cali Means. He's, sort of at the center of HHS and the White House. And, he's the co-author of the, wildly successful Good Energy. It's a big New York Times bestseller, sold millions of copies over the last year, and been a big part of the reason why people are really changing how they see food. And, he's been focused on looking at the root cause of disease, focusing on healthy food, exercise, stress reduction. So very happy to welcome Cali Means once again. Hey, Cali, we can't hear you.
Hey, can you hear me now, Tony?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony. I want to address specifically the glyphosate and the pesticide dynamics. I'll start a little bit higher level and then drill into that. At the highest level, I got into this fight because of children's health, because of the violence that's happening against children on so many different fronts, the fact that we have the sickest kids in the world. And this is a life or death issue, this is an existential issue, this is an emotional issue. And I know many on the call or everyone on the call feels that way. We're fighting for civilization in a lot of ways here. This is existential. And I do think, when you look at this first year, there's some extraordinary things that have happened. And I think that's because of this grassroots uprising. I think on the federal political level, it's because this amazing combination of President Trump and Bobby Kennedy have unleashed a seat at the table for children at the federal decision-making level. I see it every day. And I think the degree of tangible policies we've advanced and the conversation in America that's been advanced is something most of us couldn't have imagined a couple of years ago. That being said, and I'll just share the vibes I'm seeing from the administration as I'm interpreting them. There's not gaslighting coming from the administration on the pesticide decision. There's no message for folks to get in line or be supportive when they don't feel supportive. I think there'll be more to talk about. Secretary Kennedy. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Secretary Kennedy will have more to say on it. And I think this needs to be discussed more, and it's totally fair and I think expected for there to be a lot of emotions about this. I mean, a lot of people in the administration share genuine and urgent anxiety about our food. I'll step back for a second and just say, personally speaking, this issue has been one of the most vexing, depressing in a lot of ways topics we've come across here. I think Secretary Kennedy's come across, I've personally come across. We do have, and let's just say the truth, we do have a very suboptimal situation right now where farmers are not skipping for joy right now. They're not greedy. There's not a cabal of farmers, trying to enrich themselves by making Americans sick. Farmers are really, really suffering right now. And I've met with 150 different groups and farmers, and they're really, really, really suffering. And there is a perception that these chemicals are needed for the food supply right now. And there's this perception and a reality that I think the majority of farmers are not even making money right now. So that is clear. And it's also clear that these chemicals are very harmful, and it's a really, really disaster. It's a very tough situation, and we are grappling with these issues. And I think I'll just say again, there's not gaslighting here. It is completely understandable for decisions to elicit a lot of outrage and a lot of discussion. And I think the administration, and I will say this, the administration is embracing this large tent and embracing these complex issues. And my personal goal here is to continue to work with the administration and for us to earn the right to keep this coalition together. I think so much positive stuff is happening by unleashing this conversation. I do think this conversation is consciously being unleashed and encouraged by the administration. And Bobby Kennedy and we are fighting to give this movement a voice. And the president has delivered for Bobby time and time again. So we're continuing to push. Just personally speaking, what can we do now? We are going to absolutely unleash what we can control at HHS to spur innovation. Bobby's been on the phone with leaders around the world of venture capital and talking to as many people as possible about how we can transition as fast as possible towards a better agriculture future. Bobby Kennedy controls is at the head of $50 billion of annual NIH funding. We're going to pull every lever we can. And I know Bobby Kennedy is going to be on the phone every single day to build a bridge, because the reality is we have to build a bridge to a better system. We're going to be pushing all we possibly can. And MAHA has a big seat at the table, and we'll be continuing to push this. So again, I don't want to sugarcoat it at all. I think we are still at a time where there is revolutionary change happening both politically and culturally in this country, and we're going to be continue to push really hard here.
Yeah, I mean, that's, what we really need is as much dialogue as we can possibly have. So, it's a great point that, we don't want to shut anybody up. We had years and years where if you posted something online, it would be taken down, you would be deplatformed, you'd be vilified, you'd be, called one of the disinformation dozen. We're grappling with tough questions here, and all the people coming out and getting upset and voicing their different views on it. That's a good thing. That's a strength. And, the fact that you're there and that Bobby Kennedy's there, really trying to figure out an off-ramp for these dangerous chemicals, trying to figure out a way to transform and to transition to a better way of farming that's going to help farmers, that's going to not, bankrupt them, but also not poison the public. That's what we need. That's what you guys are doing. And that's a good thing. So thanks so much. Next up, we have Dr. Sinha McCullough, and she's the creator of the online program Go Wild, how we can get rid of the chronic disease and autoimmune problems in this country, which is it's a step-by-step guide to reversing chronic disease. She's an expert in nutrition, disease reversal, functional medicine, and so many other things. She's an author of a terrific book that we're publishing, and very happy to have you on. Thanks so much, Dr. Sinha.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. I see the glyphosate executive order as really a wake-up call. It's clear evidence that expectations of what government can achieve have been misplaced to a certain extent. This executive order reveals two hard truths to all Americans. The first is that our food supply has become dependent on the very chemicals and GMOs that are making us sick. And the second is that our food system has become so complex that even the best intentions in Washington are getting tangled in its tentacles. The government is actually functionally limited. So yes, I think it's great to continue the fight for government reform, but don't put all your eggs in that one basket. We know there's regulatory capture, there's a revolving door, backdoor deals, corruption, loopholes, and people are wanting Kennedy to stop all of that, which is a good thing, but those things are going to exist. That is part of government. And my book outlines that entire argument in detail. But even if Kennedy can't get anything else done in government, his most important contribution is that he has brought a heightened level of awareness to the issues with our food supply, just like Dr. Latipo in Florida is doing. So I see this as a moment, an opportunity to realize that we, the people, are actually the solution. And where we can shine is understanding the role that we are meant to play in this system. You know, there's a former FDA commissioner who once admitted that what the FDA is doing and what the public thinks it's doing are as different as night and day. Because you see, the FDA was actually never designed to be a nursery to protect us. It was designed to facilitate a marketplace where you are the final judge. So just before the FDA officially existed, Dr. Harvey Wiley created a poison squad. So he fed these young, healthy men increasing dosages of preservatives like formaldehyde and borax. And he was trying to prove that these preservatives were toxic. And those experiments led to Wiley establishing the founding principles of our national food laws, which are that companies are responsible for the safety of foods and chemicals they make, and the citizens are the watchdog. So our job in the system is to keep the government and industry in check by having the final say through our purchasing power. Before the FDA existed, that's actually what Americans did. Your safety net was your relationship with your farmer and your local shopkeeper. Your net was your active vigilance. But when the FDA was born, that government kind of seal of approval caused an unintended shift in the American psyche. And as safety laws were passed, it actually lulled Americans into this false sense of security. And they just began to blindly trust the food supply. We stopped being the watchdogs we were meant to be because we believed we were being watched over. So in essence, we traded local eyes for a bureaucratic safety net that was full of holes. But because the net existed, we stopped looking for those holes. That led to this veil of unearned trust that has been passed down from generation to generation like a family heirloom. It's keeping us sick, disempowered, and waiting for a rescue that was actually never part of the original deal. And, you know, I'm not giving government a free pass or industry a free pass. They're both part of the problem. But in their own documents, the FDA actually admits that the people are the solution. They openly have stated that if we don't demand safer food through our purchases, the market has no incentive to provide it. So you could say, well, that FDA stance is just a convenient excuse, right, for an agency to do nothing. But it's also a confession. They've told us the rules. We're supposed to selectively give our consent with every single food purchase. We're not passive consumers. We're the ones who help patch those holes in the safety net through our choices. So every dollar we spend is a vote. We have to feed the good and starve the bad companies. You know, my veil of unearned trust was so thick, it took almost dying to actually wake me up. I have a PhD in nutrition, but I spent 2 decades in a medical nightmare, literally dying while specialists were telling me that it was all in my head. My son also developed autism and idiopathic joint disease and so forth. And once I realized that the main problem was our food, you bet I got angry. But, you know, I had to let that anger go because I learned that the system was always designed to be a certain way, and it has its limitations. I had misplaced expectations, like most of us, about the real role of the FDA, the USDA, and the EPA. But once I realized their actual job and their limitations, and I realized my job in this system, I harnessed my power, and the impossible became possible. Every symptom that we had, autism, arthritis, tumors, they all reversed. So I'm here to tell you that you can thrive even in a broken, corrupt system. And I wrote Hands Off My Food because I wanted to help others harness their power too. I think it's time that we lift our veil of unearned trust and we harness our God-given power. We have more power than anybody realizes. It's in your hands. So let's harness it and let's work together because we can reclaim our health and the freedoms that we have relinquished.
Sadly, most people on Advantage plans today don't know.
Thanks so much. That was really just well said, and I just love your point of view, and I love your book, Hands Off My Food. And it is really my food. It's all of our food, and we're winning. And part of that victory is that everybody in the country now seems to know that glyphosate is a dangerous chemical that they should try to not put in their body. And that wasn't true just 1 year back. So that is true now. We all know the truth now, and we can start to act on it, and we can make better choices. So that is real progress. And, we can, like you said, we have to rescue ourselves. We have to demand safer food. We can control our future by making active choices and by voting with our wallets. So thanks so much for coming on. Great to have you here. Next up, we have Dr. Daniel Pompa, and he is the author of the Cellular Healing Diet. He's a leading cellular health expert and teaching practitioners worldwide. Very, very wise man who has studied all of these things, including how to detox in great detail. Always great to have you on. Welcome, Daniel Pompa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Sticking with this glyphosate theme, I can't help to move away from it. I wanted to finish some of my messaging from last week discussing the cell membrane and why so many people don't feel well, chasing hormones, chasing their energy, brain fog, and that's a disrupted cell membrane. I mentioned the damaging bad fats like seed oils and what they're doing to the membrane and certain toxins. But I want to continue that, but this glyphosate topic, I can't tell you how many texts and emails I got over this executive order, and a very discouraged group of people about this. And I assured them that there isn't this gaslighting going on that you think. Our health secretary is not sold out. Bobby Kennedy still has our hearts, in everything that we're about, in the front of his mind. And I explained it as just that. If we pulled this chemical out of the system today, because that seemed to be what they wanted, why can't we just outlaw this? We would obviously have an absolute new problem on our hands. Oftentimes, you just can't take a drug addict, the drug away from them because they literally get so sick so fast that they literally die. What's happened to our soils because of this chemical has left us in a very peculiar place of having to literally wean this chemical out. And I think one of the greatest victories that we've had is the fact that we're not going to protect these chemical companies any longer. And we're not going to put laws around them that they cannot be sued like we did with vaccines. So, we need to celebrate that. But the fact is that we need to vote with our dollars. And Dr. McCullough just pointed that out, took the words right out of my mouth, Doc, because, look, I can't tell you how many people that I have got emails from or texts from that, I know that aren't eating majority of their food organic, right? The only way to solve the soil problem, the farmer problem, is to vote first with our dollars. And look, I know for some families, it becomes very difficult, right? Because it is more expensive. My messaging there is always great. Stay away from the dirty dozen, eat from the clean 15, but as much as you can, we need to buy organic. And therefore, we will start to change where the money goes. And sure enough, politics always follow the people, the people's wishes, and ultimately the money at hand. I also want to say this because of all the texts and emails that I got. Did we think for 1 minute that there wouldn't be a battle, meaning that these companies would just fold and we would have this, just walk right into every piece of legislation, new law that we desired? Of course, we didn't think that. And I will say this, the battle's always spiritual. When you're dealing with these, big pharma and vaccines, and we're changing their schedule, ultimately having a massive impact on their finances, there's going to be a battle. Well, do we think it's going to be any different with these chemical companies, agriculture? Of course not. But what we have to be really careful about is turning on ourselves. That's what they're trying to do, right? They're always trying to turn us against each other, and this time even perhaps the administration. That's not going to go away. So I think that we have to, number one, trust those that we have put into this position, that we've elected. Trust those right here. on the MAHA board and those involved, knowing that it's not as simple as just taking a chemical away, because obviously we would have new problems and create new problems. Look, what I want to say is that the battle is in fact spiritual, but we're not here without a war cry. I mentioned this one other time before. There is a biblical term, and if you look in your Bibles, it's translated in the English as be strong and courageous in times like this. And the reason I say that is because I feel like right now we are in such an incredible position to change America, and I believe which will ultimately change the world. And the health of our children, absolutely right now, we are ready to step into a new promise. And because of that, the battle's spiritual. But the war cry in the Hebrew words is much more powerful than the English be strong and courageous, because in the Bible, every time someone was about to step into a promise God had, and that's where I believe we are as a country right now, be strong and courageous was spoken, but the Hebrew words are rak chazak amatz, which really means God has stepped into that promise before us. And when we speak the words rak chazak amatz, we're harnessing the power of God to just usher us into that promise he has. It unites the people around this promise. And right now, those hearing my voice, we need to unite. And that's my point, not be separated. We need to unite that we're stepping into a promise that God has for us. It's bigger than Trump. It's bigger than Bobby. It's bigger than all of us. God absolutely hears the cries of the parents for the children themselves. If we look at what's happened over the last 20 years, my God, you think that God doesn't hear the cries. He does. And I believe right now, we have the opportunity. I believe God is using every one of us on this call right now to answer that cry. But rak chazak amatz, everyone hearing my voice, we have to lean in on what God is doing and trust that and not be divided. That's exactly what the enemy wants. And if the battle's spiritual, he wants to divide us. So everyone listening, you're getting the emails too. And this is what I want to challenge you to. What you just heard from those from the top right there, you have to trust that message. And that needs to come from you, just as it needs to come from me. And therefore, that will trickle out into 1,000, if not 1,000,000 other emails and texts that are going to assure people that this administration, right, our health secretary has our hearts and he has our greatest concern. And no doubt, it's not as simple as just pulling a chemical off the market. If it were only that easy. So Tony, and everybody involved, I want to thank you. It was a hard week, but we need to stay united. Rak chazak amatz, everyone listening.
Did you know?
Thanks. That was really, really great. Thanks for saying all of that. And it's so clear that this battle is raging, and we have the platform, we have the tools, and we have to stick together. This is a spiritual battle. It takes courage. It takes calm, strategic thinking and planning. And, we can get there. And we are 1 year in, and we're going to make a lot of progress. So thanks so much. Really great.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Dr. Pierre Corey. And he is a critical care doctor who's bravely spoke out during COVID and, later wrote a best-selling book called The War on Ivermectin, just a spectacular book. He's got 2 new books out now. One is The War on Chlorine Dioxide, and the other is From Volcanoes to Vitality. And he's really focused on restoring the mineral content of drinking water, but has done so much really critical work and is a great hero of the MAHA movement. Thanks so much for coming on, Dr. Corey.
Hey, Tony, thanks. It's good to be here. I feel like I'm coming out of like an intellectual quarantine. I have not really been able to speak about my most recent work, although you did mention the book that got produced. But I think you guys are all going to be really interested to hear what I have to say, because it's it's like almost serendipitous. The work that I've been doing is directly relevant to the topics today. And I didn't do that on purpose. I followed a trail that led me here. But let me just tell you my recent story in terms of research and writing. But about 6 months ago, as some of you know, I have a telehealth clinic. I take care of, try to treat the vaccine injured and long COVID, very complex patient population. And, you know, over these 4 years, I'm constantly on the search for new therapeutics, new things that I can help my patients. And about 6 months ago, I got introduced to a little known sort of accomplishment by a Japanese engineer from 50 years ago. And it's this unique mineral extract, which this man actually spent 20 years in trying to figure out how to pull out of primordial volcanic rock, and ended up achieving that. And it comes out in this liquid mineral solution. And I started to research it. And at first I thought I was studying minerals. I thought I was studying the exact mineral composition of this extract. And then as time went on, I learned that the amount of minerals in this extract was actually minuscule. Like, it could not explain some of the things I was seeing, because I started to see these really compelling patterns in my clinic of improvements. And the more and more I went, I realized I was studying water, because what these minerals do is they transform the water and the quality and properties of the water. And without going into a history lesson, you guys have to understand, we've been living now, 150, almost 200 years since the Industrial Revolution. And if you look at the history of water and how older cultures and in antiquity, they describe water, they call it living water, vital water. And those were waters that were heavily minerally conditioned as they passed through bedrock and came up to the surface. And in the last 200 years, our water has been totally corrupted. Not just the toxins that everyone talks about and the endocrine disruptors. I'm talking about the mineral content and its properties, because we've fractured aquifers, we've polluted aquifers, we're pumping water like you wouldn't believe, we're diverting streams, and man-made activity has really changed the quality of water. And we don't really have something that I think is vital water. And this mineral extract can actually, in my mind, restore water not only to its kind of original state, but its original properties. And what happened is my research into this mineral extract, it led me out of the clinic, it led me out of medicine, into biology, biochemistry, geology, and then, pertinent to today's topic, into agriculture. And I have to tell you, what I've been studying about water that has been properly mineralized with this composition, what it does in agriculture, you guys will not believe what I have to say today, but not only is it doing things to plants in terms of the vigor, the pest resilience of plants. You don't really, in a few field trials, they don't even use pesticides or herbicides. But most importantly, literally 2 nights ago, I found a study that uses the same, of a company that uses the same mineral extract. And they did a study actually on cannabis plants, and they measured pesticide uptake in control plants that did not get this water, mineralized water, and then just got regular municipal water. Because that's the other thing that's happening in modern life, is that our water is so chemically processed going through plants, and it's becoming chemically managed. But when you use this kind of restored water, the pesticide uptake is reduced by up to 70 to 85%, and on average 50%. And not only that, but the resilience and the vigor of the plants, they grow faster, they're much more sturdy, they're much more resistant to pests, they have much more antioxidant, and they also uptake nutrients. That's the other thing, right? Because if you guys study anything about agriculture in the last 100 years, is that our plants, they've lost taste, they've lost nutrition, they don't assemble, the sugars, the fats, as well as they did. And a properly mineralized plant can be transformative. And the vegetables that I'm seeing, and especially this most recent discovery of the mitigation of uptake of pesticides, I got to tell you, I think I'm on the sort of the vanguard of what could be something that's transformative for all of us. And that's what I got to say.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And it's it's so clear that the lack of proper minerals in water has been really harming us. That the use of fluoride and of processing, that is just taking everything good out of water, just sort of killing water. And so putting those minerals back are clearly going to help our plants, help our general health, help our gut flora. So this is great progress that is possible, and that these are battles we can win. we can figure things out. We can do a better job. We can make ourselves healthier. So thanks for the work that you're doing and all the fighting that you've done over the last, 5 or 6 years.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Next up, we have Shira Bowler, and she has written a fantastic book called One Scan Saved My Life. And, she really went through a very tough, lung cancer diagnosis and, crisis that, could have been solved from a routine scan and was in her case solved by a routine scan. And she's really dedicated to making sure that millions of other women, don't have to go through what she went through, and that they get scans, in a reasonable time, in a preemptive way, so that they don't get cancer, die of cancer, have to be treated for cancer. So thanks so much, Shira, for coming on.
Thank you, Tony. And you're right. One scan saved my life, and that's the name of my book. And I have been dedicating my life since then to make sure other people can get that scan. I'm the daughter of a pulmonary lung doctor. I'm a never smoker. I'm the mother of 4. I, reach for the fridge, not the pantry. I ran 6 miles the morning that I had the scan. And when I walked into the doctor's office to have it read and they said, "You have lung cancer," I said, "Wrong person, wrong scan. I'm sweaty from my run. I've never puffed a cigarette. My dad's a lung doctor. Try again." And what I realized in the whole process of being told I have lung cancer, having a bronchoscopy to find the biopsy that it was positive and was lung cancer, and ultimately had lobectomy, where 1.5 of my right lobes from my right lung were removed. I was forced to slow down a second. And what I realized was how lucky I was that it was caught early. And I can sit here today and say I'm cancer-free. Just a few months later, I was diagnosed in October. Surgery was in October. And what I realized was unlucky to have cancer, lucky that I caught it early, but not special and unique in the actual diagnosis. And lung cancer is killing more young, healthy women today than breast cancer and ovarian cancer and colon cancer combined. And I was blown away. And that's when I started talking to Tony and realized a book had to be written and people needed to learn that we were in this female health crisis, that they did a recent study in 2025 and 70% of people diagnosed with lung cancer did not meet lung cancer screening guidelines. They weren't over 50. They didn't have a history of smoking a pack a day for 15 years. And they were missing the lung cancer. We don't feel our lungs, so we can't find the lump in our chest. We don't, have blood in our stool like a colon cancer patient. And by the time we see symptoms, it's often too late. We're already stage 3 or 4 because our hip hurts and it's metastasized. And so what I decided to do was we got to change this. We have to change the guidelines so that people do get scanned and they do get screened for lung cancer, just like we do for breast cancer or colonoscopy. And that starts at the top with guideline shifting with Secretary Kennedy's team at USPSTF and Dr. Oz. And it's also educating the CEOs of big insurance companies so that they understand that lung cancer is the #1 cancer killer. And it's also writing a book and teaching my peers and spreading the word so they can ask their doctor for a lung scan, just like a mammogram. And it's teaching them to talk to their husbands and their wives and their friends and to understand that it shouldn't be the #1 cancer killer. If we catch it early, you can have a minimally invasive surgery and have your lung removed. I'm back to running. I took a couple weeks off and I'm back again. And I just looked at my husband and looked at my 4 kids, and I feel extremely lucky that I got that scan, extremely grateful that I was able to catch it early. But knowing that I wasn't unique in the diagnosis pushed me over the edge to write the book and start advocating and teaching other people about what's going on with lung cancer and cancer in general. And I think what I'm really lucky is my husband and I are in healthcare. We knew that you could have these preventative scans. We've done the genetic screenings, we've done the full genome sequencing, and we've both spent our lives working, to make the right decisions, to be proactive on our health. And it is so important to do that. And I can sit here today and be a lung cancer survivor for that reason. And in my process over these last few months, to be honest, it's been hard to find other people like me, other lung cancer survivors that are thriving and doing well because they did catch it too late. And it's extremely unfortunate. And mine was a fixable problem. And I want to share it and change the way we do medicine and change the way our healthcare system works to be more proactive and work on doing preventative scans and not just reactive when it's too late.
Thanks, Shara. That was really great. And, the book is One Scan Saved My Life. And, one scan can save your life. So it's such an important book. You're such an incredible spokesperson for it and for the topic. So please, people who are watching, buy the book. Tell everybody MAHA is here to make it easier and more affordable to be healthy. And scans are a big part of that process. And I hope the book is a big bestseller because that's going to mean that we're saving lives. Thanks so much for coming on. Next up, we have Jeff Hayes, and he is the director of the new MAHA film and the author of all kinds of really important things that will that really highlight the MAHA movement and all the different characters in the MAHA movement and what they're doing. And he's demonstrating how healthcare became dominated by corporate interests, by bureaucratic layers, by perverse incentives that have left patients sick, doctors frustrated, and a system that's clearly broken. So Jeff is taking a big role in trying to fix that. And one of the ways you do that is putting it in front of millions and millions of people so that they can begin to change their lives. So Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for all the work you're doing. Thanks for producing these great movies.
Lose 45 pounds and become unrecognizable.
Tony, thanks for having me. I am really excited about this. We sent you a little 3-minute promo that will explain this, and if we can roll that now, and then I'll come back and answer any questions. On August 23rd, 2024, Bobby Kennedy Jr. suspended his presidential campaign with a brilliant speech in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd been told to fly in the day before to support him without knowing what he was actually going to say in the announcement. After his press conference, the team told us we were all going to a Trump rally. 24 hours earlier, I didn't know I was going to be in Phoenix. Suddenly, I find myself on the front row of a Trump rally in Glendale, Arizona, with almost 20,000 Trump supporters. When President Trump introduced Bobby, the crowd went wild. President Trump said he had never heard a welcome like that. I haven't either. Bobby didn't plan anything. He went on stage and just spoke off the cuff.
And then 2 hours later, an hour later, I went out on the stage and endorsed President Trump. I didn't have anything prepared when I went up to endorse him. I didn't know what I was going to say. Those words just came out of my mouth. It was make America healthy again. Who's going to make America healthy again?
That was the day, August 23rd, 2024, that the MAHA movement was born. Bobby, being a lawyer, filed a trademark on it soon after. After the election, I reached out to Bobby and asked if I could license the brand MAHA to make some films to support this new movement. I knew I had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get real access into the heart of our medical system. And for the last year, that's exactly what I've been doing. Loaded with our film crew, we've traveled all over America, spent millions of dollars searching for the truth. Over 180 interviews, not just for the question of why are we so sick, but the cures. From the corruption of the over-medicalization of our kids and kickbacks to the pharmacy benefit managers, to the amazing stories of stem cells, doctors solving root causes, peptides, solutions for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and diabetes, even the truth about weight loss. It's a sweeping story, and I think you're going to be blown away with what we've uncovered. This is a MAHA film. That means it was funded privately, no big corporate ad money, no big pharma sponsors, just private citizens partnering with MAHA Films to get this out into the world. What you're about to see is footage, most of which has never been seen before, from people at the highest levels of government, healthcare, and healing. These are the people fighting against the corruption, searching for the uncensored cures with the power to heal our nation. And for this limited premiere screening, you can see it and share it for free. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Welcome to the MAHA movie, MAHA Uncensored, The Truth About Medicine. So this went live last night. It's really kind of huge. It turned out to be 16 chapters. I thought I was making a 90-minute documentary, and it turned out to be 16 30-minute segments that we're going to play, release one each day for the next 9 days. So we have a chance to really educate people and make this easier for us to get done as a movement. We've covered a lot in this. If you go to mahamovie.com, you can sign up to see it for free. And then we ask you to please share it and let's get this out. I think this can do a lot of the heavy lifting for us and get people way more educated on what went wrong with our medical system, but what we can do that's right.
Thanks, Jeff. And, we are here, all of us, we're part of the MAHA revolution. But you're the man who's been, telling us and who's reminding us where we've been, how much we've been through, how much progress we've been making. So, I hope that all the people watching this, that they, watch this movie, mahamovie.com, that they post everywhere, post on every social media platform. Make sure everybody in the country hears about this movie, watches this movie. This is the next step for us. You have more movies coming. You are the one who is chronicling this incredible movement, this incredible progress. And, we're all grateful and want to help you. So thanks again.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Dr. Robert Malone, and he's been one of the most important voices for the medical freedom and informed consent, movement. And he's been, exposing corruption in the medical establishment for many, many years now. He is working just day and night on MAHA questions, problems, wrestling with.
The real cause of heartburn
is to try to get things done. And I'm just so grateful for his thoughtfulness, his willingness to engage. And thank you for coming on once again.
Thanks a lot, Tony. I think it was last week that we had a little chat about the importance of the miracle of breast milk and the immunology that's developed around that. Today, I'd like to switch gears and talk a little bit more about policy, and particularly about a new survey. So a new national survey of 1,000 likely voters has revealed something quietly revolutionary about the American electorate. This national poll was performed by Rosetta Stone and was just completed 2 days ago. Beneath all the noise, the shouting, and the endless spin, the American people are actually far less divided on substance than the media would have us believe. I know you're shocked. What this data shows is simple but powerful. Americans want reform. 59% support the movement to make America healthy again. There's been a lot of chatter about that. 59% support MAHA. Over half support reducing the bloated CDC childhood vaccine schedule, another controversial position, but we're in the majority. And a majority want to end the COVID-era liability protection that shielded vaccine manufacturers from accountability. These are not fringe ideas. These are mainstream majority positions. But here's where it gets especially interesting. Support isn't confined to Republicans. Younger voters, African Americans, and Hispanics are all showing strong approval for reining in public health bureaucrats. In fact, young Americans, especially those under 40, approve of cutting the childhood vaccine schedule by nearly 65%. That's a generational sea change. So what's happening? People are starting to see They're starting to see that health freedom, accountability, and sovereignty are not partisan slogans. They're common sense values. The same is true for America First, which enjoys majority support nationally across every racial group. Even a third of Democrats agree with it once you talk about what it really means, protecting American jobs, families, and borders before worrying about everybody else's problems. Here's another key takeaway. The policies are more popular than our other politicians. President Trump and RFK Jr. both have near even approval ratings, roughly in the mid to high 40s. But the MAHA agenda itself tops 59%. That means the movement for reform and accountability is bigger than any one personality. The American people are united around principles, transparency, fairness, the protection of children, and the belief that no corporation, especially in big pharma, should be above the law. And let's not miss the most hopeful sign. Minority and working class voters are responding to the same message that built the conservative movement: sovereignty, responsibility, and freedom. Hispanic voters overwhelmingly support MAHA. African American voters want the number of mandatory vaccines reduced. The distrust of institutions is no longer partisan, it's populist. Here are three obvious realities. First, accountability beats ideology. Second, people want justice, not slogans. Third, skepticism of centralized power is going mainstream. That's our message. Strong policies matter more than strong personalities. We win by standing on principle. It isn't a country rejecting conservative principles. It's a country demanding that conservatives finally act on them. The appetite for real reform, real sovereignty, and real accountability is not marginal. It's majority. And in a nation this divided, majority is power. Let's not waste it. Thanks for having me on, Tony.
Thanks so much, Robert. And, those are really key findings. And it's just clear that virtually every person in this country, every parent clearly wants our products to be healthier, wants to end the over-medicalization of our children, and they want their freedom back. They want to be able to study and learn and make decisions for themselves. So thanks so much for bringing these statistics to us. And, I hope that we can get more and more of them, because part of this whole process is to try to convince us that the stats don't back MAHA. And the truth is that they really do, that Americans want to be healthier, that they know they've been lied to, they've been subjected to propaganda, they've been censored, and they're tired of it, and they want change. And that's what we're bringing to them. That's what they voted for. And that's what they're going to keep voting for. And people have to recognize that. So thanks again for coming on. So in closing, I just want to say once again, thanks for joining us for yet another great MAHA Media Hub.
The sound of an American oil company hard at work.
Thanks for tuning in each week. And thanks to all of our speakers for their insights, for their dedication, and for their, hard-fought contributions to the MAHA movement. Just to say once again, we're going to keep fighting day and night, and we have powerful tools at our fingertips. We have the MAHA report on Substack that's got something like 200,000 followers now. We've got the MAHA Institute roundtables. These have been just fantastic meetings with a laundry list of just top of the line speakers. We have the historic MAHA Summit each year in the fall. We have the legislative tracker. We have the incredible MAHA Films, mahafilms.com. We have the MAHA books, MAHA parties, big events all around the country. And then we've got a mailing list that's growing and growing. It's more than 2 million MAHA warriors now. And then we've got all of the influencers who are tuning into this show that have hundreds and hundreds of millions of followers. So we're a powerful, growing organization, and we're going to harness every bit of that power and work with every cabinet member, every branch of government, every stakeholder, every company, anyone who wants to work with us. We want to be a powerful resource to the Trump administration. But also, we want to be a powerful resource to every person in this country, every parent, to fight to make this country healthier. And that's what we're all about. We want healthier children. We have the sickest children on earth, and we can do better. We have to do better. Following this call, you're going to get an email that's going to have clips from this call and all kinds of content that we hope that you're going to repost. And, the main takeaway here is, watch the MAHA film, MAHA Uncensored, MAHA Uncensored, and share that with everybody you can share it with. Get that message out. And then go to our website, go to see the legislative tracker, take action, join us, volunteer. Once again, read the MAHA report on Substack, and let's all work together to make this country the incredibly healthy country that it can be. Thanks again, and see you next week.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.
For thousands of years, we walked in what the earth
so we've been watching the MAHA Action stream, and they go live every week. And so Google MAHA Action. I should be more prepared and put the links in the description. But you know what I'm saying. Just go to this. Right. MAHA Action. There it is, right there. Second from the top. And they just changed their website. MAHAaction.com. Yeah, we've moved. Yeah, so now the MAHAaction.org. So I signed up. I'm in here. And, you can take it from there. So just to summarize, what were we saying? So as you can see, the speakers were kind of paralleling what we were saying. Right? And what were we saying? We were saying this. You heard Pierre Corey talk about the soil. So as our soil, right, depleted, and why has our soil depleted? Oops, so I hit the wrong thing. Man, I'm gonna punch this. All right, so we stopped adding wood ashes to our soil, and that started in 1882 when the first electric station got online. Thomas Edison at 3 p.m. on Pearl Street threw the switch. Since that time, our soil has been depleted. All right? And so I'm trying to make the argument stick in your mind. So you see this lovely, smooth rear end of Marilyn Monroe's, all right? That rear end was built by her mom around here. Her mom had access to some of the most nutrient-rich food on the planet. All right? Here is this lumpy, this snack pack rack of Kim Kardashians. Her mom built the foundations to this rear end around here. All right? When the soils were completely vacant of nutrients because we stopped putting wood ashes into the ground. Okay? So we only put 3 elements, N, P, K. And the executive order of Donald Trump that everybody is going mental over concerning glyphosate says that out of the 250 million pounds of glyphosate that's sprayed on crops in America every year, 6 million kilos or 13.5 million pounds are produced somewhere else. We're going to repatriate 5% of that production, so 100% of the phosphorus that we need, 100% of the elements that we need for pesticides and for incendiary devices and for war and for food and for whatever, this element of phosphorus, we're bringing it to the states, so 100% of the of the manufacturing is done here. That's what the executive order said, and so this one of 2 parts talking about the MAHA glyphosate meltdown. Everybody in the Make America Healthy Again movement is like, what? Trump signed an executive order about glyphosate? You know, everybody's like losing their mind, and you can't lose your mind unless you talk about a greater truth, which is how all these green stars are all the elements that the human body needs. Those were provided in the soil when we used to fill the soil with wood ashes. We stopped doing that as soon as electricity became a reality. And now, instead of growing these lovely natural forms, right? This is the common denominator. Are you sick? Are you fat? Are you miserable? All right. What disease do you have? Do you have fibromyalgia? Do you have diabetes? Do you name a disease? Lyme disease, COVID, this, that. If your body does not have the materials it needs to build a proper house, you're going to break down. End of story. So there cannot really be a discussion about glyphosate and about health and about food without bringing it into, without framing it with reality. All right. So that's what we're saying here. All right. So this is the unofficial king of LinkedIn Live talking, and I'll thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Au revoir.
Unofficial king of LinkedIn Live.